This episode is in partnership with Dell Technologies. Dell can help push your business further with innovative technology designed for small business. Visit dell.co.uk.
Welcome to the latest edition of the FSB Podcast, the go-to podcast for news, tips and important information for small businesses and the self-employed. This episode is the second in our three-part series brought to you in partnership with Dell Technologies to explore the ways in which technology can help small businesses innovate, improve and advance. And this second episode is titled How Tech Can Help Your Small Business Improve Operationally. Now, all small businesses would love their operations to be more efficient so they have more time to focus on their core activities and growing their business. However, there are plenty of other benefits to more efficient and slick operations too, and we will explore some of those in our discussion today. To do that, I am pleased to say I'm joined once again by Dell Technologies experts Andy Bone and Jason Crawford. Thanks for joining me, both of you.
Thank you, John.
Thank you very much for having us.
No, it's good to speak again. And this series is nice. It's really kind of evolving, starting off with the ways in which, organizations can really use tech to innovate and find new ways to operate. And then I think today we'll talk quite a bit around sort of operational efficiency and the benefits that can bring. Let's start by talking exactly what we mean by that. What do we mean when we talk about tech for improving operations?
Well, I think the biggest thing, John, is it's all about looking at what the processes and operations we actually do on a day-to-day basis. And then we look at how or which we can automate. Now, that might sound really simple and straightforward, but you'd be surprised the level of automation that we can drill right down to. So, it could be quite a simple automation, such as the stuff that we do within our financial packages, where our receipts or our invoices get automatically pulled into our software. The things that are in front of us, those sort of automation processes are very simple, but they can go on and on and on. And what we tend to talk about really is like, where would you like to be, in 5 years, in the 5-year approach, what sort of automation would you like in place then? And we can talk about, if you're a sole one-man business, for example, and you're trying to get a hold of a customer, they're engaged. Happens all the time. They try to phone you back, you're engaged. So that conversation has got a pinch point straight away. So how do we automate that, for example? How do we get a resolution from that? So it's looking at ways in which we can automate all types of different parts of our organizations to actually come out with an outcome. And there are lots of workflow software packages out there that we can do this with. They're very, very simple. But obviously those workflow packages will probably they definitely need some sort of hardware to actually sit on and to actually run. So, the larger organizations, when we talk about workflow, we're talking about how their servers and their storage operate to actually enable their workflow. So it's built into that higher level of infrastructure, if you like. That's where the workflow comes into the larger organization. But a small one, it's all about, having the software and the hardware that work together to enable you to automate. So what I would suggest is look at every single process and look at how those processes can be automated to actually cut out on that time. So it might be marketing. So marketing might be how do I send emails? Well, I look through my customer databases and I send emails to people, maybe manually. Well, actually, let's automate that because that's taking a lot of time. How do I know what customers are buying? Well, again, we can automate that process. And we're going to look at some examples of how that's been done by small organizations and small companies that we personally know. And especially Jason's got a really good example that we'll look at a little bit later on.
Thanks, Andy. And you mentioned sort of marketing there and how it can streamline that process. There are other areas, presumably, are there when you talk about day-to-day activities? I'm thinking about sort of things like finance and resourcing and scheduling. Just how broad is this, guys?
It's as broad as the length of a piece of string. It literally is everything and everywhere within your organization. So you need to look at everything and set targets. So you set those targets for automation. Start small. Don't think you're going to do them all at once. Just start and build them up. Roll them up so that eventually every single part of these processes that you need to automate will be covered, and it is literally looking at them, writing them down. It's like the old days when we had to write all our ideas and everything down on paper. It's the same sort of principle now. Write it all down, start from the beginning, start a list, start at the top of the list, and start automating everything you possibly can, and work on it as a day-by-day process. So add and add and add as you go through. And you'll soon realize that you're then cutting down the amount of time you're spending doing lots of manual processes with these automated processes that you've actually put in place that technology are going to help you do.
Yeah, and I think what often helps our audience kind of understand these topics and the opportunities of these topics is an example. Have you got, you don't have to name it, of course, but have you got an example of a small business perhaps you've worked with or you've come across that has used tech to improve its operations and with real impact?
Yeah, I've a very good example of that, actually. I have a friend that actually started up his own craft beer shop. Now, he started off very simply. He's actually from the US, but he strangely opened a small craft beer shop in Glasgow. And he started from the ground up. Literally started with one tap of draft beer and a few cans. Now he's 5 years into his business. Tech has changed the way that he actually becomes productive. And to become productive for him, and he's got this very positive mental attitude of keeping going through. He came through coronavirus, but the tech really helped him. And so what he's put in place is a very good front-end web page. Secondly, online ordering for either pick-up, collection, a booking system to be able to actually book people into his place, because he only has 20 seats. So managing that and having the calendar in place to be able to deal and handle having that many customers through, you have to have something fairly robust when you've only got a small space to serve to. As well, it's great for him. Everything's automated, so when he's taking orders from people, he can see trends and see things for the future and see, well, actually, there's a good example of me. I'm one of his customers. Jason, he likes a New England IPA. Well, we'll make sure he orders regularly. We'll get that back in stock for next Saturday. And then it's the same with his ordering system for his draft system. He now has 5 taps. So he needs to actually be able to get the stock back into place. And then for the customer experience as well, if you do go into the bar and he can set up a tab on his automated tools, he can actually send you over a receipt digitally as well afterward. So for him, on all sorts of levels, that's worked. And with his platform integrated into social media, Andy mentioned marketing earlier, he's able to drop videos and be able to keep people up to date on social as what's happening, what events he has on. So it's all about that integration of all the different things that you need from digital technologies. And I've found that that's a very good example on a small scale. But who knows where he'll be in the future. Many organisations that we've seen that started off small, Brewdog's a good example of that. They just had a couple of bars and now multinational. And I'm sure Andy's got a couple of examples of some of the big boys that started from the ground up.
Yeah, I think it is really a case of thinking digital first. And if you start that sort of that culture in the workplace, if you think about the technology and being digital first, so looking at automation, what it will do, everything you start looking at, you'll start thinking, actually, I can automate with the way I do that. And you'll then maybe look at some of the existing automations that you're doing and think, actually, that's not really saving me time or making me more money, so how can I improve on that? So it is really developing that type of culture around what you do within your business to get that automation into place. So yeah, I mean, I like talking about the real success stories. I think I mentioned Uber last time. You know, it's a digital platform. You know, there's nothing more to say really. It's a digital platform that's massive. It came from a seedling. This time I'm going to mention Airbnb. I mean, Airbnb, I don't know if anyone knows the story behind Airbnb, and I didn't really understand why it was called Airbnb, but it was all because 3 guys used to let 3 airbeds out in their living room, and that's where the air came from in Airbnb. And that is just a digital platform, and again, it's all automated. So, you know, from small seeds grow large small acorns grow large trees, and that's exactly the sort of process from an automation process that Airbnb was seeing a success over the years. In fact, what is it, 15 years? Sorry, the last 15 years.
Yeah, I think that automation message is really good. And I think, Jason, your example there sort of showed some of the obvious benefits, whether it's kind of getting time back for you as a business owner, whether it's making your operation more efficient, with things like auto ordering and repeat orders and things like that, and the customer experience and the marketing element. Those are all things that obviously come out of that one simple integration or deployment of tech. Are there other benefits as well? I'm sort of thinking of, we tend to think that if we automate things, we can set parameters that makes things sort of safer and a bit more sort of rigid and protected. Are there other benefits too?
Well, there is. As you grow as well, the things that we have to think about are things like loss prevention. And as we start to grow in small businesses, and as much as we'd love to have the most amazing employees, and mistakes happen, things go wrong, and things go missing, that can then be tracked actually digitally. So that's something that we've seen as organisations are growing up from being one employee doing all yourself, and then having people that you've hired to do different jobs. That can be as simple as small bits of stock getting misplaced in the wrong place. If everything's checked digitally and looked after in that way, using scanners, and I know that's a little bit of investment, and we'll talk about that a little bit later on, but it just means that we can keep things in the right place and keep a track of where everything's going, and obviously keep our data secure as well. That's vitally important, because when we talked earlier about customer data, the fact that people know what I like to have a drink in the bar, which style, I'd rather that's kept secure and is not leaked out there to the world for everyone to share. So obviously having that security in your tech in place is vitally important too.
Yeah, and that's becoming a bigger and bigger issue, isn't it? As increased regulation comes in and increased scrutiny over things like data. And Andy, you spoke a little bit about, Airbnb as an example, and BrewDog, and just how far this can go. But, for small businesses, can you give them a sense of just how innovative and grand this type of sort of automation of processes and systems could become? I mean, just how far can we go with this?
Yeah, I think, as I mentioned earlier, the key to it is to start small. It's all about taking every day-to-day task, the things that you repeat or your staff repeat daily, and just thinking, why are they doing this? Why are we constantly repeating ourselves on a daily basis? Why can't we just put that into a little box and get that automated and out of the way, so that then we can concentrate on innovating? When we start innovating, that's when we can start growing. And I think that's the key. Unless we've got lots and lots of resources to expand our team rapidly, to enable us to innovate, we need to innovate from within. And the only way we can do that is making again, this is the phrase we used in that first session so much, and we're so passionate about, is time. If we don't have the time to do this, we're never going to grow, and that's really key. It's time and money. If we haven't got the time or the money, how are we going to grow? And that's really where this is going to help you out, because it's going to make both, because it's going to save you money and it's going to give you much more time by creating this automated processes. Again, with these automated processes, what we need is technology to enable us to do that.
Yeah, we've talked a lot about time and the potential for time saving. You mentioned money there as well. Is there an angle here in terms of the period we're in right now, with the rising cost of doing business and the other huge pressures that small businesses are facing? Is there an angle here around how getting your operations more streamlined and finessed can help you meet those challenges?
I definitely think so. It's there's a few pinch points. We like talking about pinch points, and we try to understand them so that we can help people out as an organisation ourselves. So that we've talked about the data, keeping it safe. That's a really key pinch point nowadays, because that can cost a lot of money if we fall foul of regulations and rules and we lose data. It's obviously very complicated for people to make decisions regarding technology, because we're not experts. Well, as a small business, you're not going to be an expert in what technology we should have, and you probably don't know what technology you need to acquire and what services you need to acquire to enable that. But the financial support itself, that's key in today's environments. And again, as an organisation, we're there to help people make those leaps and jumps to enable them to thrive and grow. So it's we have got processes and systems, and we've got our own bank in place to help people through this era, to put it more into an operating cost, so that taking away that burden of having to fork out a massive amount of capital expenditure. We can help people just put it into an operating cost, so they don't have to purchase it outright. That's quite key in today's environment, I think, is to be able to spread that cost over a longer period of time. So to put a bit of certainty, a bit of stability in that monthly, that yearly cost of technology and how much it's going to cost in the future.
Brilliant. And Jason, any final thoughts on how tech can help small businesses improve their operations further and the benefits to them for the longer term?
Yeah, well, I think we have covered a few in here, but I think that, the main thing is don't be afraid of investing in technology. I think Andy mentioned in our last podcast, it's like getting the right employee in your organization. Don't be put off by that, because actually, if you're running on older technology that maybe is 3, 5, and maybe even beyond years old, you'll actually find that you're costing your business not only in time, but also, as well as we currently look at the current energy crisis, the newer technology actually has less power consumption as well. So don't be afraid of that refresh. It may not look like you're actually gaining a return immediately. It may actually be a few months down the line, a year down the line, maybe even a couple before you see the returns from it. But it is well worth looking at that refresh process. Find out what you're using, find out how it can also save you time, find out how it can save you energy, and find out how you can get help to actually acquire that technology, as Andy mentioned there. So yeah, absolutely. Lots of ways that we can go about this and have a discussion. Feel free to ask experts at Dell. We do have teams there as well to be able to actually help people out with that adventure. Our Dell Tech advisors are available to have those conversations. It's a free service, but it's something that's well worth that deeper conversation, because I know it can be daunting.
Yeah, it certainly sounds like there are plenty of benefits to be had. Thank you both. That was really good. And I think it will help a lot of our small business owners understand just how they can use tech to drive more efficient processes that will deliver plenty of those top line benefits and enable them to grow in these difficult times. As I say, that was the second in a 3-part series of podcasts looking at how technology can help you innovate, improve and advance, brought to you in partnership with Dell Technologies. You can go back and listen to the first in the series by visiting firstvoice.org.uk and click in Knowledge Hub, and the third in the series will be live in the next month. Thank you also to our audience for listening. While I have your attention, I would just like to remind you that you can subscribe to the FSB podcast to receive regular updates and guidance on the big issues affecting small businesses. And do please also remember that you can find a whole host of additional webinars, podcasts and other content at firstvoice.org.uk and on the FSB website at fsb.org.uk. Many thanks for tuning in.
This episode is in partnership with Dell Technologies. Dell can help push your business further with innovative technology designed for small business. Visit dell.co.uk.